in your educational stage itself, you're getting exposed to such good amount of information, which will be so helpful for you as you move into your corporate career in a year or so. Experts joining in, giving you all the advice, an expert like Salil investing time and giving you all the wisdom that he has around marketing and digital. Satyaji himself is an expert in this area for so long. Other experts that might have come in and given you a lot of good knowledge and learnings based on their experience. So it's certainly a privilege which we as marketeers, when we joined 20 years back, never had. I mean, we had to jump into the sea and learn ourselves, and we wasted a lot of time to do that. But probably for you, it's a very good opportunity that Volsante is giving and getting you exposed to so much of experience which exists around in the industry, and those experts who have interacted with you and given you their wisdom. So a very envious position that you are in, and make the best use of this time, because you won't get this kind of opportunity the moment you pass out. I'm sure some of your colleagues who might have joined other companies and must be getting their projects done there probably will not have this kind of structured, process-driven hand-holding which Volsante is giving you. And I would only wish you good luck and would say pass out in shining colors, and we'll of course grill you when you do final presentation, but your foundations are so strong now in last couple of weeks that you will surprise us, I'm sure. So the action part will begin now, where we'll now move into how to work out a targeted campaign. And in whatever little time that I had, I've put together a couple of case studies that we as a company have done for some major brands in the industry. I'll tell you how we did it, and I'm sure when you work on Volsante brands, you will be able to put your thoughts together based on some of these best practices that I might share with you today. And feel free to come back with the questions that you might have, even going forward. If you have some questions while you are working on your campaigns, communication, and tactical plans, feel free to come back to me and other experts who are there on the panel. I hope the slides will come up soon. Till that time, I think what we'll do is, the topic that I'm going to cover today is around creative campaigns and communication. And this is around a couple of case studies that we have worked on in last so many years. So let's begin, and if I can request Satyaji, since he's operating it, can we go to the next slide, please, to understand what makes that campaign relevant. And as Satyaji mentioned, and as Salil also mentioned earlier, why do we need to run a campaign? That why piece, always keep in mind, is important. And as I take you through some of these slides, you will find its importance more and more. Next slide, please. This is the menu card for the evening. I'll just take you quickly through the background, some of the creative campaign, the key ingredients, the 6 billion steps for creating it. Then comes the important part, the case studies. Why insight is so important, and I hope when you have done your understanding of insight mining and insight versus facts, you have understood it deeply, because they will be very, very important piece when you create campaigns going forward. We'll also see what are the changing trends in pharma designing, and then kind of collate the information together and summate it. Next slide, please. Just to begin with, I'm sure, just to set the scene correctly, these are some of the campaigns that you would have seen in last couple of years, and these are very, very famous campaigns for some of these brands, and there are hundreds of such campaigns. The whole objective to show this slide to you is campaigns make brands and companies memorable, and memorable for years to come. So all the PowerPoint and strategy bit that you might have done till now will prove true when your action piece, when the rubber hits the road, is right. So whether it is Thanda Matlab Coca-Cola, a campaign which came 17 years back, or Zindagi Ke Saath Bhi, Zindagi Ke Baad Bhi, a campaign that LIC has been running since ages, or Daag Achhe Hain or Kuch Meeta Ho Jaye, any of these campaigns or other campaigns that you might be remembering as of now in your mind, they've helped those brands and companies become memorable. And as you move forward in your journey to create campaigns for Volsante, keep in mind, when you are creating that campaign, how do you make the brand that you're working on memorable for years to come, that people will say that this was the person who created a very robust strategy and actionized that with a very creative and very memorable campaign going forward. Next slide, please. Now, over the years, when we joined marketing, there were limitations when we were taught that this is a very restricted field. There are challenges. It's a sensitive subject, side effect reporting guidelines, disclosures, code of conduct and code of practice. All the blah blahs of the world were given to us to make the campaigns that we worked on. I still remember, and I and Salil have worked for some years in Novartis. There were so many restrictions that you could not play around much, and the campaigns were indeed boring. If we reflect on our campaigns, which we created years back, they were literally boring. But now this whole scenario is changing. Next click, please. The campaigns are evolving and it is becoming more bolder. Brand managers, marketeers, agency partners are, letting go of the status quo. They are still looking at within the regulatory framework. Can we think out of the box? Can we initiate conversations through an engaging campaign, through an engaging communication piece, whether the format is digital or print or any other media related format? But is my campaign, though it is a very cliched word, out of the box, but is it really answering the pain point of the customer or the consumer? And they're trying to go out of their comfort zone and creating things which are more bolder than what we did in our times when we kind of constricted ourselves within the framework. Next slide, please. Let's look at how do we connect these dots and how do we come up with certain innovative, creative campaigns, and what could be the learnings for you as we move forward. Now, what exactly is this targeted campaign or brand creative campaign? I think if you simply define it, it is an organized and strategized effort to promote a specific goal. So it is not a creative piece. I think the important words are organized and strategized. Organized because there's a lot of planning which should go behind creating something, and strategized because the entire foundation piece that you have worked on till date, the strategy that you have worked on till date, should reflect on whatever campaign that you're working on. Some of those insights that you gathered, some of those pain points that you collated should get answered by the campaign or the creative or the communication that you create. And that's why keep this organized or the planning piece in mind, keep the strategy in mind, and keep the goal in mind before you start jumping on creating your communication piece or the campaign, as we call it. Now, this creative campaign is actually a focused effort which guides the customers towards a desired action. What is that behavior that you want the customer to change, a doctor to change, for a patient or a caregiver to change, or maybe your field force to change, is what this creative campaign should drive. It actually emanates from the strategy bit that you might have already created for the VSIP brand that you're working on, and should reflect the essence of that strategy in your creative. I'll share with you how probably you can do that. The third point is very critical, the insights piece. Insights play a major role in identifying the core need of the target group, and that need should be addressed. This is the why piece which Satyaji was talking about, which your campaign should answer. If it is not answering that why piece, it will be yet another campaign but will not resonate with the target group that you are trying to achieve. It requires in-depth research. I'm sure when you do insight mining and when you do your other in-house primary or secondary research, if you use those research endpoints and the insight, it will become a piece of art, or otherwise will just die its own death as yet another piece of creative which nobody noticed. Okay, so keep in mind that's an organized and strategized effort. It is keeping in mind the desired goal. Your strategy should reflect into it. Insights play a major role in identifying the core need of your target group, and only then it becomes a piece of art which becomes memorable. Next slide, please. There are 6 billion steps, as they call it, to reach a creative piece. The first and the foremost, of course, is the purpose. Why? Why do you want to create that campaign, and what is driving it? So that purpose is very, very important to define before you jump into creating your campaign for the VSIP brand that you're working on. Be very clear who is the target group that you're trying to address. Is it the HCP? Is it the patient? Is it the caregiver? Is it the field force? Is it the pharmacist? Is it the paramedic? Or whatever. Clarify within the group what are the target audiences that you want to address, and develop those specific campaigns around it. Then comes the concept piece, the action piece. What is that hook? What is that common thread which will bind your creative together? And what eventually will that concept be based on the insights that you have culled out? This concept will then have the copy piece, which we call as the storyboard, the communication of the messaging that you create around it. And then parallelly, you also decide on the format. Is it going digital? Is it a social media creative piece? Is it a print creative piece for face-to-face discussion? Is it going as an emailer? Or is it any other media that you are following? So be clear on the format, because the formats can also probably tweak your campaign and creative. And most important, in the end, you should also have well-defined KPIs. How many doctors you are going to meet or expose this campaign to, and what are those KPIs that you would like to keep for yourself to believe in the end the campaign piece that you ran is successful or not. So these 6 balloons, keep in mind, are very, very important when you jump into creating a strategic creative piece. Next slide, please. Just a little bit around each of these pieces. So purpose, be very clear, is the why piece of it. The ultimate objective behind defining your campaign. It could be differentiation, as Satyaji mentioned. It could be a positioning change. You might be changing the positioning of the brand. You might be probably creating something around the seasonal spurt. It could be just about embedding your brand versus competition. Anything around the why piece defines your purpose, and that's the first step that you should make before you jump to think about the creatives. Second is the target group. As I said, well-defined customer segment should be clearly laid out, whether it's SCP, patient, pharmacist, paramedic, field force, etc. Next, please. Comes the concept mix, the third balloon. Work out the insight-based core idea, that one core idea on which you will develop the concept, and then connect. This is not those, this is actually a spell mistake. It's connecting the dot around it and working the next step. Insight, based on the story, you work out your copy, and everything runs around the insights that you might have culled out for your brand. Next. Format, as I said, plan in advance the usability of the campaign and which medium you are using it. Is it print? Is it iPad driven? Is it social media? Is it mailers? Is it something else? And then, of course, parallelly define your KPIs. What are those goals that you want to achieve, and measure your success as you take your campaign forward. If I have to summarize all this, keep in mind that the campaign is a connected series of operations which is designed to bring out a particular result. Keep in mind the purpose, the why piece of it, and the goal that you want to achieve with it. Keep in mind the steps that you should take when you work out a creative piece and communication, the why piece, the target audience, the concept that you want to create, the storyboard, which is your messaging, the format in which it is going, digital, print, social media, etc., and what would be your KPIs. These are a must-have, the imperatives for any creative campaign. Keep practicing insight mining. I think you never stop doing it. We still do it because at times we might miss out a couple of insights which are around us, and they help you find that one hook, like we did for Ladies First, that helps bring, build a very strong concept and define a very sharp communication storyboard to support the concept. Going forward, if we get some time later in the day, it will be important also to see how could you be good storytellers. And storyboarding and storytelling is a very important part of creating such campaigns. So if we get some time later, we can take that up. But otherwise, keep practicing your skills around this 6 balloons, insight mining. How do you, find solutions to the problems that you are seeing out, and then work on these wonderful brands that you have on Volsante board. And then when you work out your creatives, probably this will be very useful. So I think I'm almost on time, and thank you very much for your attention. I hope some of this might be useful for you as you create your creatives and very targeted communication for the brands which have been given to you. And feel free to come back to me anytime over phone or offline whenever you want to, if you have any challenges, if you want any suggestions before your final submission. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, Manoj.